Welcome to a special Wednesday night after dark edition of NASCAR Chat, the YouTube show where we discuss some of the latest happenings in NASCAR, especially the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. My name is David Whitlock here in Houston, Texas, aka LHD on Sports on Twitter. All of you know my first co-host Lexie. She's been with us every show so far from Charlotte, North Carolina. How are you this evening, ma'am?
I'm pretty good. How about you?
Not too bad. I've got a 4-day weekend coming up, so I've got a lot of things going on. That's kind of why we're doing the show here earlier in the week than usual on Wednesday. Once again, we put this together late. We couldn't get in touch with Kells, so hopefully she makes the next show. As always, we miss you. We'll see you next time. But we move on. We missed last week also. A bunch of us are busy. We're busy people. Turns out this job doesn't pay very much, so we have to kind of put it together when we have time. As you know, as we mentioned before, Lexie and Kells do a really cool blog called Ladies in Black. The link information is at the bottom of our YouTube, so be sure to check that out. But we want to get started. As I mentioned, it's been a couple weeks since we've chatted about NASCAR. A couple weeks ago, we were kind of railing on Kyle Busch. He'd won 2 in a row. One of the three of us wanted him to win, and you got to see that happen. The interesting thing in Richmond was he won kind of coming from the back of the pack. So obviously you were pleased with the result, but what were your thoughts on that race and his performance?
I felt like it was pretty good. It was about the same as the last 2 races, so it was pretty good turnout. Richmond's always a good race, so it was very, very cool to see him win 3 in a row for the second time in the last 3 years. Last time he did that, he won the championship, so fingers crossed.
I certainly think he's on track for that. I mean, he's accumulating the most points. Even when he wasn't winning, if you looked at most point standings as far as, besides Harvick, who had that run early, they were just 1 and 2, and it didn't take long for Kyle to take the lead. As I recall, in that particular race, was somebody else winning at the end? Was it Kyle Larson winning at the end and he overtook him? How did that play out? Or was that, I think, a different race?
That was Bristol when he did the bump and run with 6 laps to go. That was Bristol. Okay.
It was Bubba. No, that was the last show too. I'm getting confused. It's been too long since we got together. So we'll jump to last week, which of course was Talladega. You've got the restrictor plate racing, which is entertaining in its own respect, and it was back and forth, a lot of action, and then not one of your favorite drivers. I tweeted in the middle of it, I hope Kyle doesn't win, and then you and I got in a little fight. We kind of made up. We agreed that it's okay if Denny wins. But
just a little friendly argument, no big deal.
That's all it was. But in the end, Joey Logano won for the first time in over a year. So now he puts his name in the ring for the Cup. Certainly a good race for him. And what were your thoughts on that race?
It was remarkably clean. I was very shocked because it was Talladega, so I was like expecting all the big wrecks and stuff, but it made me sick rooting for Logano, but he deserved it. It's been a long time since he won, so. And update, the win was legal, so that's pretty good.
Right. There was no cucumbers thrown at the show, which if you saw episode 2 of our show is our running inside joke, but we finally got the win. It counted. Once again, our favorite punching bag between the two of us, not so much for Kells, is Chase Elliott. Once again, kind of was up at the top, and once again, he didn't win. Did you ever think he was going to win this race at all?
No. No way. There was no way.
Right. And it was interesting to watch down the stretch, and I missed a lot of the race, but I watched the last certainly segment. There was guys like Reagan up there trying to partner, figure out how to get other guys in the top 5. You had one of my favorite drivers, Kurt Busch, was certainly there, but nobody seemed to have any sort of speed, and it kind of wasn't that exciting of an ending because it was like, oh, was Logano going to hold on or not? And he did, and there really wasn't any challengers that I saw. Kyle was up and back and forth, but he really didn't seem to be up there as much. What did you think about his performance? And it wasn't an off week per se. He started kind of towards the back and made his way up and never was able to crack through.
Well, that speeding penalty that he got towards the end kind of derailed his run. But before that, he was running pretty good. He was up near the top 5. And I think that speeding penalty, like I said, kind of derailed him a little bit. But I mean, Denny got penalties too, so 2 back-to-back speeding penalties, and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna go down there and hurt him. But it is what it is.
Right. Yeah, you used his full name at once in a tweet to
I
emphasize.
was pretty mad.
Right. And he wasn't the only one. I mean, when I was watching the race, it's like, well, this, 3 or 4 racers, is that a function of the fact that it is Talladega and it is a big track? Also, we saw a lot of people losing some traction as they got into pit road, which, of course, then they can't decelerate. Because, I mean, if I'm a driver, I want to make darn sure I'm not going too fast through pit road. But here's drivers that are going to contend doing it. What do you think is leading to this? And it's something that they should be correcting.
I don't think there's really anything you can do. I mean, if you speed, you speed. It's not really. It's technically the driver's fault because he's controlling the car. But I've seen people like blaming the crew chiefs and stuff, and like they're not the ones behind the wheel. The driver is. So technically, it's the driver's fault.
Got to take responsibility where the responsibility lies. So moving on, a big story a couple weeks ago, probably about a week ago now, was the return of Matt Kenseth, which I know you're a big fan of him, and I am as well. And it seems like he seems to have a lot left in the tank as far as still racing, but he of course was dropped. Take us through why was he dropped last year, and now take us through what he's been picked up this year, and how many races is he going to do, and what do you expect from him?
Well, last year I think it was just because there was going to be a higher talent that was coming up in Eric Jones, and I don't think that Matt wanted. Well, obviously Matt wanted to stay in the 20 car, but I don't think that it would have been easy for him because Eric is coming up and coming, and he has his own share of talent. So I feel like maybe Matt just needed to take some time off and reevaluate himself. But with this contract, he's going to be going back to where he first started in Roush Fenway Racing. So he's going to be sharing the ride with Trevor Bayne. So he probably won't be. He'll be running. I think it's 6 races. So he starts next weekend in Kansas, and he will run in the All-Star race too. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool because he qualified by winning a race last year, as I understand it, and so that still counts. So he's in the All-Star race, which is of course in Charlotte. So that'll be neat. Moving on to this week, we go up to Dover, and you were just telling me it's a mile track, so it's not quite a short track. But what drivers have had success here before, and what should we look for this weekend?
The only driver that's had really enough success is Jimmy Johnson. He's won there 10 times. So you could say he's the king of Dover. So I expect him to win. Honest to God, I do.
Expect him to win, even though we've
just because it's Dover. So I mean, statistically, he is the best driver there. But in past years, it's been favoring guys like Kyle Larson and Martin Truex Jr. and all those guys. So that'll probably give him a run for his money. But I guess we'll have to see.
So not Chase Elliott necessarily, but that'll be interesting to see. That makes me want to tune in to see how Jimmy Johnson performs, and of course Kells is a big fan of his, and the big watch is on. Is he going to have enough points to even qualify for the chase this year? Because he still doesn't have a win, or really, I haven't looked at the point standings. It's way too early for that, but certainly it's not looking like he's going to be a top contender. So it's almost like he needs this race to do well. What are the prospects? Let's talk about Denny Hamlin a little bit. I personally expect a little bit more out of him. He was kind of finishing more top 5s last year. I've seen him drop back a little bit. I wouldn't call it a slump or anything like that, but where do you think he fits this week and going forward? What's a race that you may circle that he may be able to actually get a win this year?
I don't think Dover is one of his best tracks, to be honest with you. I want to say maybe once we get to tracks like Pocono and I want to say maybe even Charlotte, because he's won the All-Star race before. He won a couple years ago. So I think maybe once we get towards tracks like Charlotte and Pocono that he'll come back up and try to contend for the win. Dover is not really one of his best tracks. He hasn't really done too well there in the past years, so I don't really expect him to be a top contender. I hope he proves me wrong, but that's just looking back from previous years, I feel like he won't really be much of a contender this weekend.
Well, it certainly will be interesting. I'll be now watching Jimmy Johnson closely. I'm not his biggest fan, but would be interesting if he's in the mix. Probably still not ready to cheer for Kyle Busch yet. I'll cheer for Kurt Busch or maybe a new winner this week. But it certainly will be fun to watch. Any other last thoughts before we log off on this week's race or anything else going around NASCAR?
Not as far as I know, but I need everybody to wish me luck on my finals because my last week of school forever is next week, and I have to deliver a speech on Monday and turn in a final project for one of my other classes, and I'm a little nervous, so just wish me some luck.
Absolutely. You know, I've always wished you luck and followed your academic career, which is winding down, maybe at least for now. But that was another reason we had to do the show a little bit early. I know you need to study this weekend, so we'll log off. I hope you don't have to work too much this weekend, and I hope we get to watch the race. Hope everyone gets to watch the race and enjoy the weekend over until we see you next time on NASCAR Chat.